guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Yvonne and you have landed on Ginger Chick Rehab, where I love to take secondhand finds, thrifted finds, and I love to share the process with you all of how I make these items over. So that is what today's video is about. We are taking some items that I have found that have been laying around, and I'm finally inspired to make them over with you all. Is this not a gorgeous oval wooden frame? I am not going to paint this. Oh, it is beautiful. I don't know what store. I don't know if somebody stripped it. You can kind of see some remnants of some paint. But my idea is to share with you how to make these little paper flowers to use as an accent on this beautiful frame. And they're really not as difficult as they may seem. So I have some thrifted music sheet paper, and I should be able to get 2 flowers. Of course, I don't want to waste this paper. I want to go ahead and get the most use as I can. And I just have this circle round, which is a coaster that I save for candlesticks or any other uses that I might need it for, to use as my base for cutting out a circle. So yes, I think you can use a larger piece if you want. This is just like from like hymnals, so it's not very big pieces of paper, but I love music sheets. You could use old books, you could just use colored paper, just plain copier paper. I don't think it really matters what you use, but this is what I chose to use. So I'm going to go ahead and get my circle cut out first, and then when I have my circle cut out, I need to start making kind of like a spiral. And there's no size guesstimate here. I just needed to cut the spiral of the paper, I would say like, I don't know, a 1/4 of an inch thick maybe. It's really not very thick, you all, as I'm working into the center of it. So I will share with you, this is my first time ever making these. So I did do a few trials and errors before I filmed to see if I could get the hang of it, see what technique worked best. I found a lot of like ideas on Pinterest, but no really like showing you how to do it. It was just always the finished product. So what I found was the easiest for me, instead of trying to roll it up on top of each itself, is to take some type of like this paintbrush here and start rolling it on the paintbrush, helping that you know, it gives you a little bit more to hold on to. So that's all you're doing, is you're just wrapping the paper into a roll. Now that I have it all rolled up, you can kind of see the end piece where you got it into the middle is a little bit on the bigger side, so that's going to be your base. And so you gently try to hold this roll, letting it flare out just a little bit. The more you let it flare out, the bigger your flower becomes. But I just put a little bit of hot glue on the bottom to hold it in place after I let it flare out a little bit. So depending on how much you let the roll unroll is how big your flower is. So to back up and really pop these flowers, I'm going to go ahead and add some of this Spanish moss, this dried grass, on the back. So I'm just going to run a seam of hot glue on the seam of the frame to attach it to it, and just kind of let it be what it's going to be. So this is just going to be an accent on this beautiful frame. I'm just kind of doing like a little bit more than a quarter of it. So now it's time to start adding the paper flowers, and I made quite a few. I may not use them all, but I wanted to make sure I had enough. And then I do know that I want them to kind of zigzag, so I'll start off in that kind of pattern, filling them up. I'm glad when I unrolled them to make the flower buds, some are tighter, some are bigger. You know, that could, potentially stress somebody out when they're trying to make these. But I liked it because it didn't make them perfect. They didn't come out all the same size. So for me, it was a God wink moment. And I'm sure the bigger the circle that you use, the bigger your flower can become. But I love these little buds. I wanted to get my flowers on before cutting down any of the moss, just because I knew I was going to be pushing it, trying to really get the glue on the back of the flower to get onto the frame, and it was going to flare that grass out a little bit. So now I can go ahead and give it a haircut. These hymnal pieces were photocopied, so there's not really, I mean, it's white paper. I would like it to have a little bit more age. Maybe I should have like coffee stained the paper first before I cut them out, but I was so excited to make the flowers first. So I'm just going to play with some patinas here. I have some of the Fusion's aging wax, and then I'm just kind of dusting on, and I think I can tell that I like it, but sometimes you have to wait for something to dry to see if you really love it or not. I didn't think that really brightened it up very much, so I took some of that. I took some coffee, which is instant coffee, and a little bit of water to melt the instant coffee, and I'm using that kind of as a stain now. And see how it's just popping the petals a little bit more? That's what I was looking for. I wanted you to be able to see the individual petals, the time I spent rolling these up. I wanted you to be able to see that. So who all looks at a wagon wheel and think, oh, this is such a cool piece. I don't even know what this wagon wheel came off, what it came off of at all. I know that it's rusty crusty, and I love rusty crusty. So let's make it into some decor, not just a random shelf sitter. So I'm going to add some greenery to it, though it's the wagon wheel itself. This wheel itself is not extremely large. So I'm going to go ahead and cut down some of the greenery so that it doesn't overpower, like I'm not adding too much greenery on there. So that is so much better. So what I'm doing with these stems is I'm taking out that middle stem. That way, if I still want to use the stem itself, I still have plenty to use, and I can still use the whole thing. I just took out the height away from it. So that's a better fit. So I do need to cut off more of the stems that I cut off because I don't want you to really see the stems. So now we're just going to take some of the floral wire from the Dollar Tree store and get these wired on. When it comes to wiring the greenery on, I'm not just going to wire it where I cut the stem up. I want to follow the roundness of the wheel. I want to prevent it from shifting and moving. So I will just pick out key points of the greenery and get those wired on. Especially this one seemed to be bent at both ends when it came in its package. So I'm going to wire that so it looks a little bit more straight. And then blending the two in together is really kind of key, so it just looks like it's one continuous piece of greenery. So are these not gorgeous? I can't even tell you what they are made out of. They are soft, but they look like wood, but they feel like foam, kinda. They're almost like I don't know what they're made out of. If anybody knows, let me know, because I thrifted a whole bunch of bags this summer. So I'm just kind of playing with it, trying to find which ones I think will be beautiful on it. And I definitely think that big one's a little too big. I'm just trying to make sure I have enough of the smaller ones, and I want to leave the pine cones if I can. Now this is really pretty as is, but I am going to add some of these cream berries that match. These were little stems that I ordered from Amazon. I like that they were a little bit shorter, though I'm going to cut that stem off a little bit more, because I really can't envision like a ribbon or anything. I knew that it needed another element, and I think these little berries will be perfect. Now up next is this, which I believe is a Hallmark Christmas card holder, and I have done these ones in the past here in the channel, and I love when I run across them because they're just fun to paint up, and they're fun to put an arrangement in there, because it already has a chain on it for a hanging system, so it's perfect for that. Now, my black paint is really just a primer, just to give it a nice dark base. I pre-washed it, it was dry, I painted the inside also. So now I'm just going to use some of the Sweet Pickins milk paint in the flour sack. I really want to give this more age, more of a chippy look. So I'd like to add this deer into the arrangement, though it's a little shiny, it's a little Christmassy. I'm going for more of a winter kind of look. So while I have some paint still left over, I'm going to go ahead and paint this up, the white paint also. One thing about milk paint is it is unpredictable. So I wanted cracking, I wanted crazy, and I wanted chippiness, and boy did I get it. Probably a little more than I was expecting. You just never know. You don't. Even with a primer coat on there, it seemed to have chipped all the way down to the natural. But I'm just going to go ahead and seal this in using some Weather Defense Metal spray, because I didn't really want to rub on it with any type of wax. You know what, if it chips off, it chips off. I wanted it to have that aged look anyway. I'm not going to repaint it. I'm just going to take it the way that it is. To get this filled up, I'm going to first fill it up with some of the Dollar Tree floral foam to really fill in that blank space, so that way you don't have to use as many stems or as much greenery. Now that I've got it packed full with floral foam, I'm going to use those stems from what I cut off of previously. That's a perfect way to use these up. I didn't really know for sure what I was going to use them on, but now I'm going to go ahead and cut them apart and then stick them into the flower foam. I don't think I'm going to have this nice and full, so I don't need anything like Spanish moss or crinkled paper or anything like that to cover up the floral foam. I have enough greenery in here by the time I'm done that will hide it. A lot of times when I am making an arrangement, especially when it's going to have a lot of depth to it, I like to add different types of greenery. I think it gives it a little bit more visual. So this is, I think it might have been a wreath a couple years ago. So I've been working on this these fern pieces for a while now. But look at how that just adds a different color in there, a different texture, just visually to the eyes. But these, since there's not any wires to push into the foam and they're kind of just like hanging out there, I'm going to put some hot glue in to make sure that they stay in. And I think taking this deer's glitter away really brought it into the winter more than a Christmas decor piece. I absolutely love how he pops against that green. These creamberries I got in the Hobby Lobby Christmas section. They're a little bit on the bigger side, but I thought they would be a great accent because the deer really, per the arrangement, is a little bit on the bigger side himself. But I'm going to cut a lot of the little stems off the main stem so I can use this all over the arrangement. So I'm going to go ahead and add a piece of homespun fabric. It's the black and creamish ticking. I can already tell that some of the paint is going to chip off. By the final picture, you'll probably see it. I'm just going to make it chip off. I'm not going to attempt to try to keep it on by trying to respray it or anything, but I think the bow on here will be very pretty. Now I have this top. It's just the top of a cheese box container. There's not really a lot of age to it, like that side is, but that's the side that's going to go against the wall. But the inside, not so much. It isn't that exciting or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and put some paper on it. I'm going to use some decoupage paper to fill in that background. And I'm just using what paper I have on hand, so either my paper was too small or it was too big. So I'm going to go ahead and use the too small because all the lettering, all the wording is there, and then I can come up with something else to fill the other dead space. So to apply, to adhere the paper to this, I'm just going to do some Mod Podge as the adhesive. So I'm just going to mist my paper just a little bit. I'm trying to prevent some wrinkles. I'm just going to try to center it as best of my ability since now I have moistened paper. I just stuck my hand in a Ziploc, which works kind of the same, like a crinkled up ball of saran wrap. Just something to help smooth it out, get it adhered. For some reason when you use your hand, the pressure is a little too heavy and it will rip your paper, but having that Ziploc or that saran wrap as a barrier really helps push it down, get the wrinkles out. So I usually just try to work in sections if I can. So yeah, misting that paper just a little bit helps. And then, like I said, yep, just stick my hand into a Ziploc and there we are. And then I'm not going to put any on the top of it. I have a different plan for how I'm going to have to finish this off because I have all that extra space. So I don't want this Mod Podge to get on the, if I can prevent it, on the front side of the paper. Now I let this dry overnight, and I'm just going to take an X-Acto knife and cut off that excess paper that is going up. So I'm just going to try to work very gingerly, but I did let it dry overnight, trying not to get the Mod Podge up on the sides as little as possible when I was putting this on. So the wood of the cheese box is just raw wood. It is dry, brittle, will really absorb color in. So I'm using some of the Fusion's black wax to just kind of stain the wood. I don't want it to be like completely covered like a paint would. I still want you to see the texture of the wood. So I think that this will work out perfectly. And if it's a little like too black, I wanted it to be black because I was kind of matching it up with the wording and I need to fade in the line. You know, we can always add some brown to it, but I'm going to start off with the black first. So I really do like the black wax. It's doing what I needed to do, but I need to fade in that paper a little bit more. So I'm going to go to the Waverly Antiquing Wax, which is a little bit darker of a wax, like more penetrating maybe, not so see-through. And then just kind of blend the two. My other wax is still wet, so I'm working with these two waxes together. But see how this is taking away the line a little bit more. So I'm hoping when it dries that that line will be gone. Now that I have the inside the way that I want it, I'm going to go ahead and work the wax down on just that side edge. I don't really think I need to worry about the back that has a nice patina going on, but I do need to blend in what was in the inside and to the outer edge of the outside. So I let my waxes dry now, and I really want to put something there. I liked the patinas together, but I thought that was a little bit too chunky. So I went back in my stash. I'm like, what do I have that's not covering up the wording? I don't want to cover up the wording. I just want a little bit of embellishment down at the bottom. And then so when I was looking, I'm like, oh, well, look at this. This is, you know, a doorknob cover, keyhole cover that's rusty crusty. It's got a nice patina going on, and I think if I layer out my glue, hot glue enough, that I can get this to adhere to this. I don't want to stick a knob off there. I don't want to make this into a hanging system by any means, but I do want to add a little bit more embellishment, and so I think a rusty crusty key fits into this perfectly. It was really hard not for you to see the glue, the hot glue that was underneath. So I'm just taking some of my rust patina and I'm just rubbing it on that hot glue. The hot glue, I just put it on. It's still a little bit warm, so this should adhere right to it. I just don't want that hot glue to be in your face. But I do want to add a hanging system to this, so I'm just going to, since I think I got it pretty centered there, and there's 2 points on this top medallion that I'm going to go ahead and just screw a couple holes in there. I have some black wire that I'm going to be using, some 17 gauge wire. I'll pull it through the holes from the back side and then I'll twist it from the inside. This is always a nice hanging system. It's nice and secure. Or you're like me when you're out and about and you're like, oh, a frame, I gotta look at the frames. I always love looking at the frames, and I do not care that they don't have glass, that there's no hanging system. I am looking for the detail. Is there detail on these beautiful frames? And I don't think that the color is bad by any means. We've got a little bit of chippish going on, but I just by chance have two frames that I think I can pair together. And though there's no glass in the smaller one either, there is still a little bit of what would have held the glass and the backing on this little one. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off. But I'm going to go ahead and leave the velvet that's on the back of that, or the felt, or the material, because I do want to layer the two of these upon each other. And as I said before, I don't mind the color, but I want to tone it down. It's just really bright for me. And that's what I do. I love to thrift items that I can envision making over. And I think painting this up and adding some other elements to make that detail pop and then just fit into what I have envisioned for them. And as you see how dirty the rag is, this is why you always clean your items. Even though the item itself did not look dirty by any means, the rag tells a different story. I'm going to go ahead and prime this very bright gold color with some enamel paint, and this is just the flat black. This will help my other color attract to it, to stick to it, and brighten it up by toning down that gold. Now I'll be using Fusion's paint on this one, and now Fusion paint is an all-in-one. It has a paint, primer, and a top coat in it, so I did not necessarily have to do a primer on that black color. But I find when I am doing like a light white, I really like to have that black underneath it. It really just makes, to me, the white pop even more. So after 2 coats of paint and a little touch up here and there, if there was some light spots, I want to pop the detail now. So I'm going to be using Fusion's Antiquing Glaze to do this. I love that it's just a soft antiquing brown. It's just amazing. So we're going to go ahead and wax on. I really want to work it into those detailed areas with a waxing brush, and then wipe off the excess. Now, how do I attach these? I do want to layer one on top of the other, but I want it to be permanent. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of hot glue just to set the frame on there. I don't want to clamp it together or anything. I don't want to risk like marring up the paint. I think the hot glue will just be enough to hold it until I can get the brad nailer just to nail it in place. I am going to go back in and I'm going to do just a little bit of touch up where the brad nails went in and then where they did actually come out, because I just couldn't aim the brad nailer enough that on the other side of the frame, but I just snipped those off and put a little hot glue to make sure there's nothing sharp, and then we can proceed on putting some beautiful florals in this. And I just love this soft baby's breath from Hobby Lobby, and it just, the color matches perfectly with that Victorian lace, and then you have the antiquing glaze. Look how it just matches. But then I know that I want to add these on there, but I just have to kind of figure out, like, how am I going to put them on there? So I think I'm going to go ahead and snip them into smaller sections, not just a couple sections. I'm going to make them smaller so it won't be so bulky. And then now I'm just going to kind of play. I know that I want to attach them in there somehow, but how do I do it? Do I do it just, you know, like
glue a whole bunch of ends together, have it coming out of the smaller frame. You know, I'm like, well, I kind of like that, but then I'm going to have to do a lot of hot glue, and how am I going to cover up all that hot glue? You know, so sometimes you have to play with a item to figure out what you want to do with it. I think I'm just going to bunch some of these together and make a simple, tight bouquet. So to test my theory out to see if I'm going to like it, I'm just going to tie it with some of this beautiful lace. I think I absolutely love the idea of this. So I'm going to go ahead and put some floral wild on there, though you couldn't really see me testing it because my frame was off camera. But I am going to put some floral tape, some brown floral tape all the way down, bunch those stems up a little bit together, clip off the unevenness so it really just looks like it's a little bouquet. So now instead of hot gluing a whole bunch of individual stems, I just need to hot glue the bottom of this bouquet. It'll be able to tuck underneath there. I won't have to worry about you really seeing it from the front. It's just absolutely beautiful. I do think I'm going to play with the lace just a little bit because I want it to just hang just so. I probably won't keep that upper one. That was kind of a afterthought that that's going to hang kind of funky. So I might do them both in the downward motion. So I absolutely love little baskets, these little baskets that can just hang off a hook or just hang by themselves, or you can set them up on a shelf. They're so pretty, and these are made very well. Though I've had these longer than I would like to admit, and I finally thought, you know what? They haven't sold as is. I've tried multiple different things, so I'm going to make the decision. It's always a hard decision to paint a basket, but that is what I'm going to do. Who would have thought that raffia was going to be so hard to take off? And then I've got some hot glue that just won't leave either. So I'm going to just zap it with the heat gun just to kind of like reactivate the sticky on it to be able to scrape it off. If you've painted up baskets, you know that the webbing, the weaving, the reed is not the easiest thing to paint. So I'm not going to try to do a solid surface. I'm not going to try to get a solid paint job. So what am going to do is I'm going to take some candle wax. This is just a little votive, and I'm going to rub it all over this basket. So where I put the candle wax, the paint won't adhere to the object, to kind of adhere to the candle wax, but not to the object itself. So I'm going to be using some more of the Sweet Pickins Flour Sack Milk Paint to paint these up. So I'm just going to do the outer. I'm not going to do the inner. And the nice thing about this is I don't have to get complete coverage. So I'm not going to try to push that paint into all those little crevices, making drips and runs in the inside. I'm just going to keep it on the outside. I only did one coat on these. I let them completely dry overnight, and now I'm just starting to scrape off the paint. So where the wax was put, the paint will just scrape off there. So I'm trying the little scraping tool that might have been a little bit awkward on these little bitty baskets, and then sometimes you just go to the old sandpaper. But my main goal is just to scrape off where the paint did not adhere with the wax. So now that I have them all dusted, I can go ahead and seal this paint in. And I'm using some of the Homestead clear wax. And I got this big tub because I use a lot of natural wax. And if you're interested in the clear tub, it is a special order. So just send Vonda at the Painted Heirloom an email message. So one of my favorite berries of all times is this dried berries. And I actually get them off of Amazon. I love them. They are in a lot of my cabinets and a lot of my own decor. So I'm going to be filling these in there. They just really, it's almost like these baskets have they kind of fit everything, you know, with your primitive and your farmhouse and your cottage core. And I know everybody always wants to like label a trend or a name of something. Something, but I don't know, maybe it's a class. Let's call it a classic. It's just a classic look, a chippy white paint with some beautiful white berries. That's classic, isn't it? Just like cutting the stems off of Greenery to get the most use out of it, that's why I separated the bunch. So I can kind of pick and choose which direction these dried at to be able to add them in. For the smaller basket, of course, I'm going to need to snip some of the ends off. They're just way too long. But I can just create this fullness just by using the way that these berries have dried. Last thing I want to do is just add a ribbon, just a simple rag type of ribbon using this homespun fabric with this ticking. I love this black and white. Well, it's not even white, it's like an off-white, but it goes with white, it goes with cream. It's just a nice simple ticking stripe, which to me yet again is kind of a classic.
So thank you so much for watching today's video, and what did you think? Yes, I made some beautiful, I mean, you don't even have to hang these on the wall. They could just be shelf sitters. They could be on a bookcase, on a shelf. Just, they're not large. They're just absolutely beautiful. And there's just something about like adding florals and greenery and getting into that winter time of mode. We're in winter now, so I hope that you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed Rusty Crusty, some rustic, some wooden. I absolutely loved making them all over for you. I hope I have inspired you to look at secondhand finds in a new way. And as always, thank you for watching today's video. And if you're part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you're new and you're checking out this channel for the first time and you liked what you saw, please hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know we've uploaded a new video. And we will see you next time, guys. And you can see what I'm up to. Bye!